And joining us with his perspective is former Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich. I actually quoted you this week when you weren't here because you wrote a brutal takedown of the mainstream media.
Well, look, I just tried to accurately report on what's going on. And the fact is that they've just gone off the deep end.
Well, you even said it's disgusting. You're disgusted, and it's despicable, and it is.
Well, and I had the experience. I was in Kiev in the Ukraine, and people there were getting their news from CNN and the New York Times. And I talked to a student group and a young parliamentarian group, and then to a more older, more mature group. And again, I was getting questions as though these false stories were true, because their only source of reference was CNN, which was hysterical 24 hours a day and being anti-Trump. And I began to realize that CNN has done more damage in the last 4 months to the United States overseas than either Al Jazeera or Pravda ever dreamed they would do. Because people believe in them. They say, that's an American network. They must be telling me the truth.
All right, but I've identified 5 forces that would like to take down the president. I think the most dangerous is the deep state. I think that is the intelligence leaking, surveillance, unmasking. We don't get to the bottom of that. It's never going to end. Even Chuck Schumer said, yeah, you go against them, they'll get you 6 ways on Sunday. Then the media, with their breathless, hysterical reporting every day, creates an impression that this president is not able to govern. That's part of their goal. And ultimately, their top goal would be to take him down. Then you got Democrats, they've wanted impeachment since November 9th. Then you got weak Republicans that won't defend the president. Then you got the Never Trumpers. They're fueling the fire to say that we were right and people like Gingrich and Hannity were wrong.
Well, of course. I mean, this is why I so strongly endorsed Dennis Prager's view that we're in a cultural civil war. These people make perfect sense if you understand that the world they want, the way they want to change America, the left-wing values they want to impose, all of those things are put at risk by Donald Trump. And if Donald Trump succeeds, their entire worldview is going to disappear. And I think that's why you have this bitterness and this anger, and in some cases violence or threats of violence. I mean, it's the most intense I can remember it in my lifetime in terms of genuine, deep political hostility.
I was with you when you were speaker. I was there for a lot of that time, and it was hostile then. This is at a level that is so much higher. And
when you start having members who have death threats, when you have a woman chasing a congressman down the street in a car, when you have young fascists threatening to beat up anybody in a parade who they don't like. I mean, you just go down the list of things that have been happening recently, and it really is like the 1930s in Germany and Italy. I mean, the left has just gone off the deep end, and they are prepared to use every means they can to stop Donald Trump.
I agree wholeheartedly. I really do. So what about how the White House is handling all this? Can they make improvements? To me, it seems like 80% of their time now is being consumed with just dealing with the 6 o'clock or 5:30 or 5:45 daily bomb that the hate Trump, destroy Trump media is going to dump on them.
Well, that's part of the reason I wrote the newsletter at Gingrich Productions, which said, we're either going to fight or surrender.
I almost want to interrupt you and say, okay, Newt, it sounds worse than it is, and you want me to talk for you for a minute because you.
No, it's okay. I was on several long airplane rides and my voice dried out. The White House does not yet realize this is a real war. They can't appease the media. I mean, the president has lunch with some of the media who hate him, despise him, attack him every day. He's legitimizing the very people who spend their time attacking him. And that's just wrong. And I think the White House, I hope when they go on this trip that they will really take some time and think about the mess that they've left behind in terms of the news media, the hostility, the Democrats in Congress. And I hope they'll come back prepared to really think about how you fight this kind of a campaign, because you have to be prepared to fight every day, and you have to be deciding that, they have tools if they want to use them that give them enormous advantages. For example, the president can report direct to the American people and simply ignore the news media. And if he did that, he would get his message across and then let the news media figure out how they were going to cover him. But every time he dances with them, he empowers them, and he makes them look more creditable and more respectable than they should be.
Okay, so I agree with you. So, look, you always think and have concrete A, B, C, D, 1, 2, 3, 4. What are the A, B, C, D, 1, 2, 3, 4 answers from your perspective?
Well, first of all, don't take their bait and spend your time talking about just trash. I mean, all this stuff, if you were to look at the last 5 weeks, the amount of time the White House has spent on left-wing trash is absurd. The president ought to talk about job creation. The president ought to talk about the kind of health system we want. The president ought to talk about national security. The president ought to talk about cutting red tape and regulations. And all the junk that these people want to spend every day on. This is why they should stop having the daily press briefings, because Spicer's not going to ever be able to get past the garbage questions that are going to come up from the news media. And so the news media right now has the president dancing to their tune. Well, the president has the ability to go on Facebook. He has the ability to talk from the Oval Office. He has the ability to do daily briefings. He can do major speeches. If he will be disciplined, he can step past all of this junk and rebuild his national coalition around the things that affect American people's lives. It's a simple test. If it affects the lives of the American people, talk about it. If it's just Washington gossip, do not talk about it.
I'm being serious with this question, and you might interpret it the wrong way. I don't mean it the wrong way. Is that realistic? Is it possible to ignore the press?
Sure. Why not?
I'm just asking. You told the story of FDR.
Where 74% of the country is on Facebook. You can create your own channel. Trump did create his own channel. If he had relied on the press, he'd have lost the election. But he created channels on Twitter. He created channels on YouTube. Created channels on Facebook. He created channels on Snapchat. I mean, he was out there doing stuff and doing it better than they're doing it right now, because right now they're allowing the press to define what the topic is.
Do you think
and
they're
the press
having...
will never define a topic that helps Donald Trump.
Do you think they've had a net negative effect? And what do you make of all the impeachment talk? And what do you make of the general counsel appointment? Special counsel appointment?
Well, I think, first of all, that the White House has to understand that this is very dangerous. Now, you're now entering criminal law. This is not a New York real estate deal. And they need to have the right lawyers. They need to behave very carefully. And they need to understand that what happens is, people who are totally innocent get caught up, say the wrong thing, end up committing perjury or obstruction of justice, and all of a sudden, you're in a totally different fight you never dreamed of. So they've got to take this very carefully, and I don't think yet that they've done that. Second, put it to one side. They have the ability to every question they get asked about this topic, they can say, that's currently being handled by Mueller, and we're working with Mueller. We're cooperating totally. Next question. And that's all they have to say.
It's a very interesting question. Because I have an FBI friend of mine. I'm really, like all these FBI guys that I've ever known and all the Secret Service men I've met and all the people in intelligence I've met, you know what they say to me is that think of all the cases, like Denny Hastert with the payment deal. He got in trouble for lying to the FBI.
Right.
Now, all right. Now, let's say you say something and you just misremembered it. And I'm not joking around here. I mean, that's 4 years earlier and you said this to them, or there's a difference between outright lying. I mean, it almost seems to me you can't win if you don't have a perfect memory in being interrogated by law enforcement if they are weaponized with a political agenda.
Sure. Look, I've said very directly, people like Flynn should never testify unless they get a grant of immunity, because you go in front of one committee, you give an answer, you go to a second committee, you give an answer, you sit down and get interviewed by the FBI, and you give an answer, and some very smart people take those three answers, lay them over each other, and say, now wait a second, in paragraph 9, sentence 2, you were different. Now why were you different? Were you hiding something? And you get into, so the person I feel the most angered about is Scooter Libby, who literally did nothing wrong.
That's true.
But the independent counsel, who is supposedly going after a leak, knew who had leaked. It was a member of the State Department, told that person to shut up and not admit they leaked, so he could use his position.
It was Richard Armitage they knew from day one that leaked.
Right.
They knew it, and they didn't shut down the investigation.
Because the independent counsel wanted to get Vice President Cheney.
I had this story that came out about me not that long ago, and I never verified it, that, I might have been unmasked and surveilled. And I just talked to some lawyer friends of mine, and I said, well, okay, what if this is true? They said, well, number one, you're a journalist. Number two, these are lawyers. They said, I'd never let you say a word. And I said, well, no. When they asked me a question, they said, I can't. We can't. Because if you don't have a perfect memory, you're setting yourself up.
That's
and I'm thinking, I love the FBI. I'd only want to help the FBI. I mean, that's what my natural instincts are.
Of course.
But is that the world we're now living in?
Yes.
That I can't try and help people that I love and respect?
You better be very careful, because you become the next target. Listen, I had an independent counsel appointed against me when I was Speaker. We turned over 1 million pages. Think about that, 1 million pages. And then I sat down for hours, and he would say, now here on page 52,509.
As smart as you are, you can't possibly keep up. It's an impossible task. It's impossible. All right, stay right there. We'll continue more with Speaker Gingrich. All right, as we continue with former Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich, his voice a little sore. He just got back from doing a lot of traveling.
Wait. You can't just dive in like this. All the years I've known you, this is the first time I've heard you talk about your underwear.
Let me tell you, I'm going to send you some. I'll send you the T-shirts.
I just want to let the mark for the record that on this date, Newt and Sean ended up discussing Sean's underwear.
This has got to be fake news. I don't know.
This is probably fake news. I don't even know what you're talking about. You know what? For all the years I've known you, the admonition you just gave before the break about the special counsel and the president, he better take it seriously. Why, in my mind, and I don't know Mueller, I don't know if you know him, I don't know him personally, and I'm worried that he loves Comey, and he may have some bias that Comey was fired. But I think what scares me is at the end of this thing, it's all going to hinge on an interview with the president after months and months and months and months of investigations go on. I mean, what does the president do at that point?
Look, remember, it's not just Mueller. I mean, Mueller's very, very respected. He was a very courageous American in Vietnam. By every standard, he is a tremendous professional, but he's going to head up a team of investigators. And those investigators are all trained to look at every piece of evidence and wherever possible to draw the most negative possible conclusion. Mm-hmm. And they're going to look at an enormous amount of material. And as you point out, they're then going to start with the White House team, and then they're going to get to the president, and they're going to be tracking back and forth. Now, in this meeting on December 11th, one of the 52 meetings you had that week, two people remember this, and one person remembers that. What do you think happened? That's really dangerous ground. Mm-hmm. And the president needs a world-class attorney who understands how to deal with this kind of investigation. And frankly, every person who's going to be touched by Mueller should have a first-class attorney and not assume in any way that any of this is a risk-free game. This is a very dangerous project. It has the potential to put people in jail, and you have to deal with it with that level of seriousness.
Is it now the point where journalists that are conservative are now under the same level of attack, or is this going to be at the White House? I've always felt this. And I'm under more attack than I have ever been. And I know you've been under attack your whole life, to be honest. So this is, nothing for you. But it just feels like it's got a level of intensity that the left wants as much collateral damage. Anybody that supports the president, likes the president, believes in the agenda. And that means everybody in the White House, everybody outside the White House, that everybody now is going to be subject to all sorts of attacks that they're never ending.
The difference is this. The left is now so frenzied and so furious that they want to humiliate and destroy. They don't, if you watch them on college campuses, they engage in hunting down conservatives. They engage in ridiculing and humiliating people. I mean, there's a whole mood out there that I think is very, very dangerous. I first saw it when Scott Walker proposed to reform the civil service bureaucrats in Madison, and he and his wife both got death threats. And I thought, this is really touching a nerve. I mean, and I think that's what you're seeing. They don't just want to defeat President Trump. They want to humiliate him, drive him from office, and make sure that no populist conservative can win for the next half century. So they want to make an example of him. And he needs to understand that. And remember, 99% of the donations in the State Department went to Hillary Clinton. 97% of the donations in the Justice Department went to Hillary Clinton. That gives you some idea what the balance of the culture is like and what they think about the current president of the United States.
All right, Mr. Speaker, thank you.